Good evening. This is Mayor Donald T. Lopez. I am calling the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque Board of Trustees, March 18th, 2020 meeting to order. The time is 7 p.m., May 13th, 2020. Due to the public health emergency, the March 18th, 2020 meeting was rescheduled for tonight. We will hear and conduct business on items on the March agenda first, and then move directly to the May 13th, 2020 agenda. The following will apply to both March 18th and the May 13th agendas. To remain in compliance with the State of New Mexico's public health order concerning restrictions regarding mass gatherings due to COVID-19 pandemic, the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque is live streaming this meeting on its Facebook page through Zoom video conferencing, and participants can join via telephonically. The instructions on how to participate in this meeting have been posted on the village website for public participation. Before the meeting continues, I would briefly like to go over a few video conferencing reminders. If the meeting is disrupted, the meeting will be suspended until the technical difficulties are resolved. If the meeting is disrupted longer than 30 minutes, notice of the reconvened meeting will be posted on the village website with the time the meeting will be reconvened and updated viewing information. In the event the meeting is disrupted and you would like to be notified directly, please provide your name, address, and email to dmolina@losranchosnm.gov. You will be contacted as to how to reconnect to the meeting. All members of the governing body must identify themselves prior to speaking. All members of the public must identify themselves prior to speaking. Please allow individuals speaking to finish prior to speaking in order to prevent speakers talking over each other. Staff has the right to remove individuals from the meeting for poor etiquette, excessive noise, or any behavior deemed inappropriate. At this time, I will move to item 2 and call roll. Trustee Hale.
Here.
Trustee Lewis.
Present.
Checo.
Present.
Trustee Riccabini. I saw you, Tom. Trustee, can you hear me? I know that Tom Rickety was on like 3 or 4 minutes ago. Perhaps we've lost him.
I'm not seeing
I know
him
he'll.
right now.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to move to item 3, approval of the March 18th agenda. I need a motion.
Pablo Rayo.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second, Sandra Pacheco.
I'm going to call for the question. Call for the roll call vote. Trustee Ryan.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Riccabini. He apparently has not reconvened with us yet. Okay, we're going to move to item 4, public comment period. Participants may address the Board of Trustees to comment on the issues, problems, or successes on topics that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Participants will also be given an opportunity to comment on agenda items for the open session as they come up. Submitted written comments that were sent to the clerk prior to the meeting will now be read. There were none submitted. Therefore, I am going to ask, is there anyone who wishes to speak that did not register prior to the meeting? If so, your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
If you would wish to speak, you can raise your hand and we can add you to be able to speak.
I'll wait a little longer. We will now move to item 5. There are none. We will now move to item 6, consent agenda. There will be a separate discussion of these items. If discussion is, that item will be removed from the consent agenda, will be considered separately. 6A is the minutes of the February 19th, 2020 regular meeting. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Pablo Reyes, move approval of the consent agenda.
Need a second. I need a second to approve the,
Alan Lewis, I second.
any discussion? I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
trustee Lewis,
Yes.
trustee Pacheco,
Yes.
trustee Riccobeni. Not on yet. The next item is the departmental reports reflect activities for the period listed in the individual reports and are included in the May packet. Unless the Board of Trustees has specific questions for any one of these items, any one of these departments, I will move on to item 8. I'll give you a moment to decide.
Where are you at now, Don? You're not going to 12?
7, departmental reports. If any trustees have questions on any of the March 2020 departmental reports, now is the time to ask your question.
Okay. no
Hi,
problem.
Tom. Welcome.
Excuse me, I got disconnected. Back again.
Okay, no problem. We're on item 7, departmental reports. Let
Okay,
me
just a minute,
restate
Mayor.
what I
Let me
said a
catch
moment
up.
ago.
Let me catch up, please.
Yes, everything up to item 7 has been approved on the March
on a second.
18th, 2020
Hold on
agenda.
a second, please.
Sure.
Okay, so did we already go the presentation by Judge Ma?
No,
Okay. So we're in the approval of the agenda. Where are we at this point, please?
we're in item 7, departmental reports.
We're in the March agenda, Tom.
Excuse me, say again where we are. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're on the March 18th, 2020 agenda, item 7, departmental reports,
March 18th.
2020.
Okay, so we're not going through an agenda for May 13th?
Not yet, that follows this meeting.
Okay, so my packet that I was mailed on Friday, the 5/8, is the May 13th BOT packet.
So you never received the March 18th agenda packet?
This is Danielle. Trustee Riccobeni, you
Yes,
should have
ma'am.
received the March 18th packet in March. This is the meeting that was postponed until today. So we're here agenda items under that first.
Okay.
And we're going to roll into the May 13th, 2020.
Okay, let me catch up to you then. Give me the date that was sent and I'll bring that right up.
Danielle, can you find that date?
Yes, sir. One moment.
Okay.
So trustee Riccobeni, it should have been sent to you on March 13th. Oh, somewhere in that week, I'm sorry, it could have been sent the 6th
On the 11th?
or possibly the 11th.
Okay, I'm with you. Move on, please.
Okay, we're on item 7, as I indicated, departmental reports. The
Okay.
departmental reports reflect activities for the period listed in the individual reports and are included in the May packet. So if anybody has a question, any of the governing body has a question about any of the departmental reports for March 2020, please ask that question now. If not, we're going to move to item 8.
Where are those reports? I'm sorry.
They're in the May 2020 agenda, Alan. They're all in the May 2020 agenda.
Mayor, this is Sandra Pacheco. I do have a question.
Yes,
So we're not discussing what's in the reports. There's
that's
just,
correct.
there's just if there's a question to what's placed in the report.
That's correct.
Thank you. And one other question, Mayor, it's Sandra Pacheco again.
Yes,
So these reports will be given by each department in this meeting so that if there is discussion or questions, once the report is given, trustees can then ask their questions, correct?
no, that wasn't the intent. The intent was to, because we're having this virtual meeting, we wanted to have the Board of Trustees to be able to review the department reports ahead of time. And if you have questions about them, the staff is supposed to be on this meeting tonight, and they should be, to answer specific questions. I like that format quite a bit, and I'm hoping the trustees will also like it because it allows for, we can save some time during a meeting if we don't have to go through every single report from each department at the meeting. I thought it would be better to have these well-written reports ahead of time, and that was the reason why they were prepared during the May packet. But this was not something that was done in March, and that was the meeting that was rescheduled to tonight.
Okay, so then really if we do have something that we feel needs to be discussed that is in the reports, now is the time to bring it up.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay,
So as far as I am concerned, this would have taken perhaps half an hour or longer for everybody to prepare a report. So you can take as much time as you need to review those reports right now if you want to.
okay. Well, I guess I can start. I did review the reports and I do have some questions on the administrator's report and maybe just some clarification and just some discussion.
Sure,
So can I go ahead, Mayor?
go right ahead. Ann Simon is on.
And thank you for putting this together, first of all. I just am, I'm looking at what the state is doing in terms of the reopening plan for the state. Just heard the governor speak just a little bit ago, and things are starting. It looks like phase one is kind of in opening for phase one is going to be in effect soon. And I am, again, just curious as to how the village is going to communicate that with the residents. If, you know, if we will be doing a formal kind of reopening plan for our businesses, if it will be just placed on our website. I just think it's important for us to be able to communicate that kind of information to our businesses and to our restaurants, and so that it's real clear.
Anne, do you want to respond to that?
Sure thing. Yes, Mayor and Trustee Pacheco, I'm happy to take recommendations on ways to communicate with the business community. As for Village Hall and our own staff and protocols, we are doing some, still figuring out some internal protocols, ways to safely allow the public into the building, that kind of thing. And I think the staff has done a really fantastic job putting information on the website that a lot of people are looking at. And we've been updating that fairly regularly. I know that you all get the notice from Fred. And when there's anything new, we've been putting that on the website. And that's our best, I guess, tool for communicating our stance. As for our policy on private businesses, we really are only following the state. We are following the state's directive. We are not setting our own policies. Does that clarify things? And
It does.
happy to take recommendations from you.
And just to mention that Fred has done a wonderful job. All of you have done a wonderful job in putting together the reports that that we all receive every day, and what's appearing on the website as well. So thank you. Yes, that does answer that question. Let's see, I have a couple of more. Also on the village vision piece that was there, I also want to make a suggestion that maybe we can include some articles from the trustees themselves occasionally. I just think that's a great communication tool. And maybe we can all just kind of share in different articles, kind of our perspectives, being able to just kind of communicate with the residents. I think that's another good tool. That's more a comment, not a question.
Trustee Pacheco, I can tell you that in years past, trustees have written articles for the vision, and we welcome the trustees to write articles for the vision. Absolutely.
Great.
And Mayor and Trustee Pacheco, I want to echo that as well. We're definitely excited about bringing more voices into that magazine. It is a fantastic tool, and it's not an immediate tool, like an immediate communication mechanism, because it's about a 6-week lag process, but it is really ripe for freshening up. And I would concur with Mayor Lopez that we would love to see an article by any of the trustees.
Great. Thank you so much. And that's all the questions and comments I had.
Any other questions from the governing body about the departmental reports for March 2020?
I just wanted to clarify that this is for the March one. So yeah,
That's
that's
correct.
all I need. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that being said, I'm going to move to item 8, financial business. 8A is discussion and approval of the cash report for February 2020. Treasurer Nancy Haynes, would you go through that February 2020 cash report?
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, trustees. The ending cash balance at February 29th was $4,610,679.94. And that represented an increase of $274,444.67. The year-to-date deficiency of revenues over expenditures is $1,188,230.09. And the most significant items that were spent was 2 checks to Bradbury and Stam that totaled $51,268.69. I would entertain any questions.
I have questions on the checks. If I can ask a question now, or do you want me to wait for that?
For the February checks now would be appropriate.
Okay. On page 83, payment of $21,250 to Prestige Equipment Incorporated. And also same page, or the next page, payment of $1,557.84 to Radar Awning, and I'm wondering what those are.
This is the February check register.
Right.
The February check register starts at page 56.
Right.
Yeah, I'm on the wrong register. Then, because it's-
Okay, well, can we get to that question when we get to that cash report?
Sure.
Okay, any other questions about the February 29th, 2020 cash report?
Yes, this is Alan. Same thing on the checks. The check to the City of Albuquerque HR Division for $9,897.89.
Yes, that's the health insurance for the employees.
That's to the City of Albuquerque.
Correct.
Okay. And the appraisal, obviously, for American Property, what was that one for?
I don't have the address on that. I just have that it was the appraisal for Village Center.
Mayor and Trustee Lewis, I recall that was to appraise Gasman and the Starlit Dance Studio to ascertain whether we wanted to purchase that property as part of the Village Center.
Okay, thank you. And then on page 58, the $5,000 to Raul Candelaria in the form of 2 checks.
Trustee Lewis, he is the gentleman that does the books for the storage units. So the 3,000 was from the January 27th through February 15th, and the 2,000 was from February 16 to February 29. He is
Okay.
the gentleman to replace the previous owners of that.
Okay. Okay, I have no more questions at this time.
Any further questions on the February 2020 cash report? If not, I need a motion. To
I make a
approve.
motion to approve the February 2020 cash report.
I need a second.
The second at Pablo Rayo.
Any discussion? I'm going to call for the question. Call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
Trustee Lewis,
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco,
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 8B, discussion and approval of resolution number 2020-03-01, authorizing the approval of FY 2018-2019 Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque financial audit in accordance with NMAC 2.2.2.10, capital M dot parentheses 4 dot prepared by Jaramillo Accounting Group LLC, parentheses JAG. If passed, the date on the resolution that was included in the March packet will be changed to reflect today's date of May 13th, 2020. Treasurer Nancy Haynes.
Mr. Mayor, trustees, this is just our standard required by the state to approve the financial audit that was presented back in February, I believe. So we just need an approval from this body.
Thank you, Nancy. I need a motion to approve.
This is Alan. I would make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-03-01.
I
Barbara
need a
Rand,
second.
Was that a second?
I need a second.
gave you a second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael,
Yes,
Trustee Lewis,
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco,
Yes.
Trustee Riccabini.
Yes.
At this time, I'm going to move to item 9, public hearings and applications for appeal. 9A, ZMA 20-01, a request by Doug and Valerie Velhagen for a zone map amendment to change A1 zoning to C1 zoning as allowed by section 9.2.25 parentheses E parentheses 8 for a property in the A1 zone with a special use permit for a commercial building in the 4th Street character area. The property is located at 320 Roel Road Northwest and is legally known as certain tracts of land known and described as tract 165A 2A and tract 165B1B1 as shown on map number 27 of the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, located within section 16, Township 11 North, Range 3 East, New Mexico Principal Meridian, as projected into the Alameda Grant, Bernalillo County, New Mexico. The property contains 0.51 acres, more or less. All those individuals who will be speaking will be sworn in individually. Ms. Winter, would you please swear in Ms. Justice? Is Nan Winter on? I don't see her name on the,
Stand by, Mr. Mayor. Let me see if she's in the attendees.
Okay.
Stand by.
I see Nan on. Nan, can
I'm
you hear
here.
me?
I can see and hear everything now. Thank you,
Okay,
Kiko.
Ms. Winter, would you please swear in Ms. Justice?
Tiffany, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Apparently, there's no one else that needs to be sworn in. Ms. Justice, please present the request for the zone map amendment.
Yes, Mayor, trustees, this property is zoned A1 residential and it has a special use permit allowing a commercial building. This special use permit was approved by Bernalillo County in 1974 before it was annexed into Los Ranchos, and it has maintained that special use permit since. The requested zone map amendment is to change the zoning from A1 to C1 and would remove the special use permit for the commercial building. The surrounding land uses are a mix of commercial and residential, C1, and also a variety of residential uses, R2, R3, and A1. This zone map amendment does follow the following guidelines. NMSA section 3-21-5 A and B apply to this zone map amendment and are met. This application is in accordance with the comprehensive plan, the 2035 master plan, which will be referenced later. And also reasonable consideration is given to the character of the district and its particular or peculiar suitability for particular uses. The property is located in the 4th Street corridor and character area and has been used commercially with this special use permit for a commercial building since 1974. The 300-foot guideline for commercial zoning also crosses about halfway through this property. No adverse comments were received by the village in the original March public notice, nor in this May public notice. The Board of Trustees will also not be spot zoning for the private interest of the owner or applicant with this application. The property to the west is zoned C1 and is along a commercial corridor. The subject property has also been used commercially through that special use permit. The application for this zone change is warranted. Without the zone change to C1, the property could still be used for commercial uses through the special use permit for the commercial building. The applicant's intent to build townhomes is a more residential use than what is currently allowed through the special use permit, and would create a more gradual transition between the commercial use on the property to the west and the residential use on the property to the east. This high density townhome residential development is not possible on a residentially zoned property, hence their request for a zone change. There is support for this zone change within the 2035 master plan, specifically in the village form and economic development goals. The master plan also recognizes the 300-foot guideline for commercial zoning, but doesn't consider it to be a fixed value, especially considering its limitations on mixed use and residential. The applicant's intent to build townhomes is more residential, as I stated before, and by changing to C1 zoning, any substantial development that occurs on this property will be required to go through the site development plan process. And also the intent within the master plan is to have higher density along 4th Street, as evidenced by the C1 zone. And also the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 to forward a recommendation of approval of this application. A variance was approved at that same meeting for a requirement for multifamily structures in the C1 zone. And this would only apply with this zone change. This emphasizes the applicant's intent for the townhome development. They got a variance for that multifamily requirement prior to this being approved. So with that, the department recommends approval of ZMA 20-01, a request for a zone map amendment to change A1 zoning to C1 zoning as allowed by section 9.2.25 E8 for property in the A1 zone with a special use permit for a commercial building in the 4th Street character area with the following conditions and findings. With one condition, that with approval of this zone change, the special use permit for a commercial building no longer applies. The findings are that the property is zoned A1 with a special use permit for a commercial building. It is in the 4th Street character area, and the surrounding uses are a mix of commercial and residential. And the property, while zoned residential, has been used commercially with that special use permit. And no application to amend the zoning has been filed within the last 12 months, and public notice requirements have been met. I'd like to note that the designs shown in this application are preliminary, and they are meant to show the concept. However, the actual site development plan would go through a separate process in the zone change. So while these diagrams are here for reference, this is not necessarily what will go forward. That would be seen in a later meeting and a later time. And I stand for any questions.
At this point, I would like to ask if there's anyone participating who wishes to speak in favor of this application. Mr. Velhagen, I understand you're on the call. Kiko, can you verify that Doug Velhagen is on this call?
I can, and I will bring him on his audio on now in just a moment. Mr. Velhagen, you can speak.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, please state your name and address.
My name is Doug Velhagen, and I live at 20 Canyoncito Road, Northeast in Albuquerque.
Ms. Witter, could you please swear in this witness?
Mr. Velhagen, I know you can't see me, but would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You may speak now, Mr. Velhagen.
So my intention here is to fall within the 4th Street Master Plan and provide additional housing for the village. These are rentals and they are townhomes with attached garages. It was a question posed to me at the planning and zoning meeting whether I would sell them individually, and the answer is no. I plan on developing this and keeping this. I have approved Fire One plan for what I intend to do, and I am adding a fire hydrant along the roadway there. This was the property that used to be the cabinet shop that burned down a couple of years ago.
Any further comments, Mr. Velhagen?
I would very much like to be part of your community.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Velhagen at this time? If not,
Rael,
go
I have a
ahead.
question.
Go ahead, Trustee Rael.
Is there sufficient space for the fire department to turn around if they should happen to need to go back there, or where you're going to build your townhomes?
Yes, there is. There is a turn into the property. It's plenty big enough, and that's part of the documentation you should have received, or it's on file. I'm not quite sure everything that you received, but it is an approved Fire One plan through the Bernalillo County. I think they approved it 6 weeks ago or so, a month ago.
All right, thank you.
Okay, at this time, I would like to ask, is there anyone participating on this call who is opposed that would like to speak? Apparently not. Are there any other comments from the Board of Trustees about this application? The floor is now closed for comments. I need a motion to approve.
I'd like to,
Rael, I make a motion to approve ZMA 20-01.
I need a second.
second. Sandra.
Any discussion? I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
Trustee Lewis,
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco,
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
I will now move to item 10, old business. There is none. Item 11 is announcements. There are none. Item 12 is new business. 12A is discussion and approval of resolution 2020-03-02, a resolution of the Village of Los Ranchos facility and property use and event policy. If passed, the date on this resolution that was included in the March packet will be changed to reflect today's date of May 13th, 2020. Mr. Radosevich and Administrator Simon, would either one of you or both of you like to speak on this one?
Sure thing. Thank you, Mayor and trustees. I just wanted to let you know that when I first started in January, one of the first things I noticed was that we had a number of requests for rental and utilization of village properties. Some required disposition of keys, others validation of insurance, some had fees, some did not. And really the rules and regulations around each facility were very inconsistent, and we felt it was really important to tighten up the use of the properties that the village owns. These are assets, and there was really not a lot of tight controls over the usage of the property. Sometimes doors were left unlocked after community members had attended and that kind of thing. So we just felt it was really important to put together a policy that tightened up the rules and regulations, made the policy consistent and fair. And So that is basically, that is the rationale behind this resolution and policy.
Unless there are questions for Ms. Simon or Mr. Radosevich, who is on the call, I need a motion.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Excuse me. This is Pablo Real. On page 87 and 88 and 89 are where my questions are. Susan says that the rentals will be allowed and make reservations 6 months ahead of time. But then it also says that the village has priority if they should have an event. And if someone makes a reservation 6 months ahead of time and then there are superseded by the village, it doesn't seem fair to me. Because if, for instance, if someone was going to use a barn for a wedding, for instance, and they had plans to do it there, and then the village comes by and says, hey, we decided we're going to have this other event and we have priority, that would not be fair for the people that already planned their wedding there. So I think that there has to be some adjustments there, and I just want to hear from the other trustees, see how they feel about it.
Do the other trust, go ahead.
I was going to respond, Mayor and Trustee Ryle. Basically, that was a great catch, and we'll see if we can avoid that from happening. I think the main thing there was to assure the public that if they had thought they were going to use the village chamber, and we had a Board of Trustees meeting on, you know, a certain night, that the business of the village took priority. If somebody planned a wedding in the barn 6 months ahead of time, I don't think we would kick them out for a meeting.
I just think that something should be in there that would guarantee that for someone that makes a reservation way ahead of time.
This is Tom. I think we can clarify that at the time of reservation, if the village has already another event scheduled in there for the village or for somebody else, then that would take precedent over somebody else wanting to come in. So it should be an easy fix.
Yes.
I agree. Anything else, Ms. Simon or Mr. Radosevich?
I have one other thing if you're.
Sure.
Okay, on page 89, it also states that some of the village employee would have to be on standby in there for that event and be there all the time that they're there. Do the fees that we came up with, are they sufficient to pay for the employees having to be there all the time that the event is going on? That is the question.
Ms. Simon, do you want to address that?
Oh, thank you, Mayor and Trustee Rael. These are really great questions, and I think the intent there was just to make sure that people were not on their own in one of our facilities. If that meant having Fred stop by, or having Keen stop by, or having me stop by, or having Danielle stay late one night, or you know, we will work it out. I don't think the intent was for us to attend the wedding, but of course we'd love that too.
Just wondered if, you know, if you have to have someone there for the entire meeting or event, it would be expensive to the village, for instance, if it's on a Saturday or Sunday, and the fee should be able to cover whatever you're paying the employee to be there.
Yeah. You raise a great point, Trustee Rael. I would hope that the fee would cover, but you raise a really good point, and we can certainly modify that language.
All right. That's fine. That's all. Thank you.
This is Alan.
Yes, Alan.
The fact that it says an employee may be required, I feel like as we tighten this up and get a feel for it, we'll know quickly how often an employee is going to be required to be there or not be there. There might just be certain types of events that we realize that an employee is going to have to be there, and we could go back and amend our fee structure should that become an issue. But I think the fact that it doesn't say has to be there at each event gives us some leeway at this time.
So this is Tom. I suggest down in the items down below 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that we just simply write in there that if a village employee is required to be there, that there may be added cost incurred, maybe for security or whatever the case may be, but there may be added cost incurred, and that'll be determined at the time by the village administrator.
That sounds good, Tom.
Yeah.
Okay, unless there's further comments, I need a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Need a second?
This is Alan. I second.
Is there any discussion?
I'd like to
Call for the question.
request
I'm gonna call for
request that
Go
the
ahead.
motion is adjusted to include the 2 items that we just talked about.
Yes.
Yes.
Does the second include that also?
Yes.
Okay, no discussion, no further discussion. I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
Trustee Lewis,
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco,
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
Finally, for the March 18th, the trustee informal discussion will be held under the May agenda. We will now move to the May 13th agenda. It is 7:47 p.m. on May 13th, 2020. And that's the start time of the May 13th agenda. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve the May 13th, 2020 agenda.
We're ready for the agenda.
I need a second.
Second.
I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael.
Can we have a discussion, quick discussion, please?
Yes, of course.
Just a point of order on before we approve it. When we get to the agenda item number 8, financial business, I would like to have an opportunity to address the mayor and trustees just prior to those discussions beginning and approve
Of course.
the cash reports. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call for the roll call vote, approval of the agenda. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
Trustee Lewis,
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco,
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
Move to item 4, public comment period. Participants may address the Board of Trustees to comment on issues, problems, or successes on topics that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Participants will also be given an opportunity to comment on agenda items for the open session as they come up. Submitted written comments that were sent to the clerk prior to the meeting will now be read. There are none. I understand that Mr. Joe Craig would like to speak. I remind the speaker to identify himself for the record. Joe Craig, if you're on now, please state your name and address.
Stand by.
Nico, can you verify if Joe Craig is on?
He is. Stand by. Mr. Craig, can you unmute your audio and or video?
I think I am, Kiko. Can you hear me
Joe,
now?
please state your name and address.
Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito Northwest.
You have
Los
3
Ranchos.
minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm again before this body of trustees talking about problems in our village. I have a huge concern about a recent procurement by the village of Los Ranchos of an unlicensed contractor and a village resident that the village has in district court with $114,000 lien against them. The village hired this individual. There is no license, there is no contracting license, and we've had I have had a conversation with Ann Simon regarding it. It does look like we will change the procurement code because of it, but this is one of the ongoing issues that has plagued my neighborhood for years. And I really would request that the village take a hard look at what is going on. My request, because of this, is that the village should institute a staff-wide drug testing program. And I want to see either LoJack or vehicle tracking placed on the village vehicles. There is, it's just a great concern. I think this probably would help alleviate my concerns about what is going on with staff and some of this procurement. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have to say.
Ms. Simon, would you like to make any comments at this time?
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. No, this procurement was made before our rapid procurement policy was in effect. And unfortunately, this did slip by us without understanding that the vendor did not have a proper business license with the village. And I just don't think this could ever happen again now that we have our policy in place. So that's about all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Simon. At this point, I'm going to ask, is there anyone else participating in this call who wishes to speak that did not register prior to the meeting? If so, please state your name and address and you will have 3 minutes. I'll wait momentarily for somebody else to speak if they choose to. I don't believe there's anyone else. So at this time, I'm going to move to item 5, presentations. 5A is Judge Robert Maw, an update on the New Mexico courts. You have the floor, Judge Maw.
Is my audio working?
Yes.
Great. I've got a few items here that have been asked for by the trustees. I've taken the opportunity because of the recent little bug that's going around and some of the disruption it's caused to speak with both Trustee Pacheco individually to answer her questions. We met here at, had a nice meeting with she and I think Ann Simon was in that meeting, wasn't she? And then subsequently, after our last hearing, Trustee Riccobene spent a couple hours back here getting to know a little bit more about the court. And so I'll try to run over the materials that were included with the Board of Trustees packet for this month. There should be on the packet portion that has the associated New Mexico statutes for the municipal court, as well as a diagram of the New Mexico courts. And the other thing that's included in here, because it's material to the statutes, the 1980 decennial census. And just to give a little background on the court and mayor, trustees, and village, the individuals, residents of the village and non-residents of the village that are attending this meeting, I'd like to welcome you all and let you know that the court is here to answer your questions. Kind of as a little background, the other part that's in the packet is Maher v. Rusk. Maher v. Rusk is a seminal case that was filed by Fred Maher back in 1980 and Judge Elizabeth Love, where the plaintiffs that were suing Mayor David Rusk and the city of Albuquerque to establish the separate but equal status of the judicial branch of municipal governments. And that's been contested multiple times over the years, and it is held up each time as the a case that has been prior decided, and that it's made law instead of using technical terms. So just a little background. The Albuquerque Metropolitan Court, and this comes back into somewhat of the traffic discussion that we've had with Trustee Rael and I know Trustee Mayor Lopez now, and some of the others over the period. And the reason we adopted the Uniform Traffic Municipal Ordinance, which Chief Radosevich was helpful and behind too. And we've had multiple meetings with the Sheriff's Office and others to finally get and look at getting whether or not we want to bring traffic in, and that's another discussion. But the background being that the Metropolitan Court was formed in 1980 after Mauer v. Rusk, and the Metropolitan Court, that's correct. And that's under statute 34-8A1. And it says that any county that has more than 250,000 people in the last, and not dynamic, not the 1980, but the last census, can go to a Metropolitan Court. The Metropolitan Court consolidated 3 courts that the city of Albuquerque was running before. The Small Claims Court, the Municipal Court, and the Bernalillo County Magistrate Court were all consolidated into Metro Court to make life easier for the attorneys who were practicing and having to appear in multiple places. When that was established, there were 2 communities that were interested in maintaining their autonomy and their own court. And as a result, after 34-8 was passed, then we had 34-8A3 under section 1, which says that offenses and complaints pursuant to the ordinance of the county, it says, the preface to that is, in addition to the jurisdiction provided by law for magistrate courts, a metropolitan court shall have jurisdiction within the county boundaries over all offenses and complaints pursuant to the ordinances of the county and of the municipality located within the county, in which court is located except, and this was the carve out for Tijeras and Los Ranchos, except municipalities with a population of more than 2,500, but less than 5,000 persons in the 1980 decennial census. It's not the last census, but it narrows it to that. And at that time, I believe we had 2,709 people, which is listed on that census sheet you'll see in the back. But the bottom line was that the Metropolitan Court has no jurisdiction over the ordinances of the Village of Los Ranchos, even to date. And it's specifically accepted here. Then 35-14-1 creates the municipal courts. That's also included in here. And it shows that essentially the municipal court is the only court of what's called original jurisdiction, meaning that they will hear the cases arising from our ordinances the first time. And then to kind of explain that a little bit better, if you guys want to look at the diagram that we have here, it'll show you that it's included in your packet, that if you look at the bottom, the municipal court goes to the district court or the magistrate court if it's in a county that has a magistrate court. We do not. The metropolitan courts go directly to district court, as we do. There's no connection between our municipal court and the metropolitan court. There's no overlap of jurisdiction whatsoever. And that's what's raised some of the questions that we've discussed over the last few years on traffic and some other things that are out there. Now, I will tell you the other thing is as a taxpayer here in the community and my own concerns, we have the right as a municipal court to opt out of DUI prosecutions. DUI prosecutions would require us to have a public defender available for people that couldn't afford representation. And the costs are quite high in DUI cases. And it's been my stance that we are better off passing those to another court that would have jurisdiction. As long as they're charged under the state DUI sections, those as a violation of state law may go to Metropolitan Court or to the district court, depending on where they want to send them. So that gives you just a little background on where the court comes from. The important part of that is the district court doesn't hear original cases under violations of our ordinances. The village does have a right to sue civilly in the district court in certain matters if they choose to. But as far as the standard enforcement of the violations of our ordinances, those are handled under New Mexico Rules Section 8. And under the Part 8 of the rules, it shows that these cases are all treated as essentially criminal cases. And that's why we use the CR code and then the date filed and for our coding systems, we can rapidly see, for purposes of compliance with time deadlines, our case numbering system, which is approved by the state. There have been some questions raised about that in the past. But our system is simple. It's a CR for criminal case, the date in its 10-digit code, and then after that, -1, -2, whatever it is. But that way, as judge, especially in a situation where we are not a full-time court, I can look at a complaint and know when that complaint originated and what we have to meet in terms of times for compliance for service of process, arraignment, and subsequent trial. And then at the far end of that, under Spearman, New Mexico law, we have 184 days from the date of the first appearance in court, typically the arraignment, to have that case heard and done, unless the defense has filed extensions and waived their right to speedy trial. So there's a really good reason for the way we code the cases the way we do. The next area down that I kind of put in here, our traffic controls, speed limits, and devices are set by ordinance, with the exception of possibly 4th Street. I don't know how recently that's done. They've not been filed with the state, so that's why they would be typically charged under the Uniform Traffic Municipal Ordinance under our ordinances, which would then have them heard here in the municipal court. The next kind of area I wanted to touch on is just a little quick background, skipping around here. The prior court, prior to me taking over, being asked actually to become the judge by Larry and at the time Kelly, they were having issues with municipal court. Cases were being filed. The judge that was in place at the time, many of these cases would last 10, 12, 14 months, extended periods. And they were actually attempting to mediate cases, which really, there is no jurisdiction for that in a municipal court. There have actually been judges sanctioned since then for trying to mediate. What we do, they're criminal cases. They're typically charged. When we get a criminal complaint in, we have 13 days that we set the arraignment, somewhere between 13 and 30 days. If a person's not in custody under New Mexico law, you have up to 30 days to arraign them. The purpose of arraignment is for the person to understand the complaint, the charges against them, the possible penalties for those charges under our ordinances, and then their rights that they have, their personal rights to attorney and counsel confrontation, all the different rights that we explain in the process. Once they understand the charges, once they understand their rights, at that point, we will find out if they're willing to enter a plea at that time and dispose of the case that day at arraignment. And that's probably maybe 3 or 4% of the cases will do that, where the people will go ahead and enter a plea of guilty or no contest and we proceed to the sentencing, which typically is a fine. We have jurisdiction to go up to $500 per occurrence and 90 days in jail and/or. So we do have fairly stout jurisdiction here. We also have the jurisdiction to issue warrants as appropriate to get village enforcement people into properties upon proper probable cause and a sworn statement by the law enforcement to go onto the property. When I first came in, Mayor Abraham at the time was seeing some very, very large legal bills on cases that were in the municipal court because of the periods over which those cases were drawn out in this attempted mediation by the prior judge. She was asked not to run again for office when she didn't run the day after the election. That's when Larry called and asked if I would take the job. And it was quite a surprise to me, to be honest with you, at the time, but he wanted a business person in that could come in and address the situations as they stood. The thing I'm most proud of at this point is that we have empowered the enforcement people. Before, they would go out, and this was shared with me by the prior zoning enforcement officer. He would go out, he would try to get people to comply, get them to be good neighbors, get them to come into compliance with the rules. And when they didn't, he could threaten them with court, but they'd never proceed and never file a case because they didn't want to spend, you know, $10,000 to $14,000 pursuing a minor violation. What we have done is now when the people go out and they tell people, you need to understand what the rules are, you need to be a better neighbor, you need to come into compliance. If they don't, now they can file a citation, which to me is the most efficient way to do this, because it doesn't necessarily involve the court until the person decides they want to contest the citation and not pay it. But with a citation, which you can do, and I've talked to Chief Radosevich, we're talking about putting together a syllabus without me stepping on any toes outside the court, but for me to assist him in helping train the staff, because there's been quite a bit of turnover since the loss of Mayor Abraham and Mayor Lopez has come in and taken over. And so I'm happy to assist in any way I can with Administrator Simon and Chief Radosevich to help put together some materials so that the documents that do come to the court are complete and properly done for the charging so that we don't run into issues. Recently, we ran into a situation where a complaint was sworn and filed against the property. The property was the wrong property owner, wrong name, wrong address, so never got good service process. We'd had one case prior to that where an individual that did not own an animal was charged for the activities of an animal he didn't own, became quite irate. So the better we can do customer service as a community and hear what the people say and but we need to make sure the staff provides good, solid, legally proper filings to the court in order for the court to do its job. And so I'm glad that we've kind of empowered the enforcement people to now be able to bring something to municipal court. Once the case is before the court, absent filings or motions for continuance that are typically made by the village to allow somebody more time to comply while we have the period between arraignment and trial, we encourage the defendants to talk with the village, understand what the village expectations are to bring the property into compliance, and hopefully, if they can bring the property into compliance, it does the village a lot. It's better for the village, in my opinion, than a simple fine once or twice. It makes them mad. They don't correct the situation. They're back and we fine them over and over, and nothing tends to change. So we do like to make sure that we get both sides talking in a plea bargain, not a mediation. And that what happens many times in the past is that once those conversations are started, people do try to become good neighbors. And in many cases, the case moves forward and the people come into compliance. And at that point, the village dismisses once they see compliance. So that's kind of just a little background on that level. I've talked about the one thing I haven't mentioned. There's some criticism in the court. I'm going to turn this a little bit. I don't know if you can see this other screen very well. One of the first projects I took on when I became the judge was to work on automation and tying our court into the state. We have done that. I was able to get it accomplished with automation funds from the state on court system. And you can kind of see as an example, and we'll go through, find where this is. Oh, it's over on here, sorry. This is something the clerk normally does. These are a list of all of the, these are a list of all of the citations, cases, and things like that that have been done since court automation, which occurred actually in 2016 is when this system came on board. And that is the listing that I've printed out here, multiple pages. And the bottom line is, and I've shared this in private meetings before with, I think, the trustees, possibly not Trustee Lewis, maybe the only one that hasn't seen this, I believe. But what I've done is I've done a compilation of the cases reported to the state. And since the automation in June of 2016, there are 102 cases that were filed. This does not count the latest one that was just dismissed because the person is coming into compliance on the case. Of those 102, there were 2 that were pending at the time I did this report at the end of March. 7 of the 102 were consolidated. That's typically where they charged a husband and wife or partners or spouses on a property that is not in compliance. And as long as the facts of the case are the same for both parties, we'll typically consolidate one of the complaints into the other with approval by both the attorneys involved and the defendants. And if they agree, that way we have one trial, one arraignment, one trial. Basically, we typically consolidated arraignment, which I set, trailing one another. And then from there, everything else moves forward as a consolidated case. So the 102, 2 were pending, that drops us to 100. 7 were consolidated, that leaves 93. Of the cases that were there, 64 cases resulted in guilty findings at trial or guilty pleas, and those 64 either were typically paid fines on those cases. There were only 3 found not guilty by the court, so there was a not guilty finding due to the evidence presented at the time, and then there were 9 that were dismissed by the village at trial, meaning that by the time the defendant and the village prosecution showed up at trial, they decided not to move the case forward, typically because the people had come into compliance and resolved the issue on their property. There were 17 others that were dismissed by the village prior to trial because typically, and a lot of this came from when Mr. Heintzelman was the zoning person, he would get the people to come into compliance. We get both sides talking, make them good neighbors again, and from there they would go. So out of 102 cases, I've found 3 not guilty. And that is by the evidence. Evidence is very important. You need photographs, videos, recordings, whatever it is, other than just pure testimony. It is a court of law. I am relegated by the Constitution, which I think is a pretty good document for something a couple hundred years old, including the state constitution from 1912, to make sure that people's rights, that they understand the charges against them and that there is evidence presented that they are, in fact, guilty of the violation, because under American law, we still have some presumption of innocence. So, but you can tell, it happened. Typically when people are charged, the village has done a good job building the case, and there's not a lot of argument against it. Most people want to come before the judge to see if they can work something out in terms of the penalty, more so than guilty versus not guilty. That tends to be straight all the way through there. But like I say, you can see there's a detailed listing on all that stuff that's in here. The only other thing I kind of wanted to hit on, we already talked about, Fred and I have talked, Chief Radosevich and I have talked about helping bring the new staff up to speed on the legal requirements of the New Mexico rules and the rules of procedure for the municipal courts, and what their options are between citations versus, which again, that's an administrative function. I looked at Administrator Simon for, the mayor, and the direction. That's really your side of the table, is how you want to approach these things. And I just want to make sure that we are there to be supportive of the process. We don't prosecute cases. We decide cases. We're the umpire at the ball game. But at the same time, it's up to the umpire to make sure the players know the rules and how the game is played. And more than happy to do that for what goes in there. Some of the other things that have gone on since I've gotten in here that are kind of important. When I first came in, there were some issues within the record keeping for the court. We have monthly records filed with the state every single month, and as appropriate, we send in the associated court costs that we have collected on behalf of the state. There's additionally a $20 corrections fee that is dictated under state law for all municipal courts to charge. Those monies stay with the community, but they have to be accounted for in a special DFA account. They are actually available to the community on an emergency basis to be used for general purposes of the community. Their original intent was to pay the sheriffs or whomever we would use to transport people between the village of Los Ranchos and to the Metropolitan Detention Center or the appropriate facility for incarceration. They would also be used if there is a requirement, if somebody is picked up on a warrant. I think in the 8 years or so, warrants for minor things can cause liability issues for the community that could result in lawsuits if they're improperly followed up on, in terms of if we issue a warrant and then quash the warrant, get rid of the warrant. If it stays in the state system, somebody gets popped and taken to jail and the warrant wasn't valid, nobody checks it, things like that. So we've been able to accomplish the job without having to have warrants issued. I think there have been 2 or 3 since I started here in 2012, 8 years ago, where I have gone ahead and issued warrants. But in general, we're able to get a hold of people. Our biggest problem has been when filings, the court accepts all filings as it's required to under state law. The issue tends to be if those filings are flawed or in error, or typically the wrong person being charged. This last one we had, we couldn't even find anybody by that name at that address. We actually found the property owner. The clerk did, trying to get proper service. She was in California, not here, and had a completely different name. So those are the things. That's where the training comes in, and Fred Radosevich has been very enthusiastic about trying to just make it better for everybody in the community through those training efforts. We did bring the DFA accounting stuff came in. That was actually when Gil was still here. I went back through all of the court cases we have records on since the beginning, tracked the corrections fees, and we did partition those in the proper DFA account. And so now there's absolutely no issue with village accounting when it comes to the court whatsoever. Before, those monies just went into the general fund at the village, and they were not accounted for their origin, and that was fixed. So brought that in. We also found one of the problems in the past is it's a small community. If people, whether innocently or maliciously or however it occurs, come to me directly about a case that's pending or impending before the court, I'm required to recuse on the case. And if it's a malicious situation, then we may look at, how that would be pursued. I think in general, it's an innocent thing, small town, somebody's trying to find things out. The best way for people to find things out is to contact the court clerk. We're happy to have anybody go through all of these records. There's a four-door file cabinet over there full of all the records of the court. The court actual motions, hearings, and ongoing cases are not online anywhere. There's no requirement for those cases to be online unless they're domestic violence or DUI. And as we stated before, we hear neither of those cases. But if you even look at like the Metro Court and stuff, you can see dates of filing, but that's all you see. You don't see any of the documents. The amount of money it would cost to be compliant in that way and put all that online is exorbitant. It's much easier if any citizen is concerned. Call the clerk, make an appointment, come in, and you can sit down in the conference room that's attached here to where my chambers are and go through stuff. The court clerk is happy to show you procedurally. Again, we don't give legal advice, but we do give procedural advice. And that is within our purview to make sure that people are not run over by forms or format of the court. So we have a lot of non-represented litigants that come before the municipal court, many times with an attorney from one side and not the village. The village will have an attorney, the other side may not. And in that situation, we just make sure that that people know where to find the proper forms, but we don't give them advice on their case. We cannot do that. But that's why Maxine does that, and they don't get to talk to me. But like I say, we're an open book here, full transparency. Trustees and Mayor, do you have any questions or things I may have
Do the
missed?
trustees have any questions? Judge Maw, I thank you very much for your presentation. I really do.
Well, hopefully I didn't drag it out too long, but like I said, I just want to make sure, I think all the trustees understand now that whenever they have a question, comment, or constructive criticism, talk to me.
Thank you, Judge Maw.
Thank you for
At
the
this point,
opportunity.
thank you. I'm going to
Thank
move
you.
to item 5B. I understand Katie Snap is on the call. Kiko, can you get Katie Snap to give us her presentation on the Lavender Festival update?
Katie, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I'm here with President of the Lavender Board, David Hudson, who has agreed to speak on our behalf.
Thank you. David, go ahead.
Well, I have a very short statement. I hope you can, I hope I can retain your attention for this one.
Go ahead.
This is about the Lavender Festival. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. So there will not be a Lavender Festival this year as we have known it in the past due to these recent restrictions for the sake of our good health. However, we are continuing with our commitment to the village to plant lavender plants in the field, which was part of our agreement that we made to use the Agri-Nature Center for the festival. So instead of a public gathering at our festival, we are collecting gift bags from the vendors who participate in the festival over the years, and hopefully with merchants on 4th Street for a contribution of between $35 and $45. And these baskets will contain gift cards and gift coupons for some of the vendors and hopefully some of the merchants on 4th Street. So and to follow through with that, I would like to request the use of the Agri-Nature Center for 2 days, parts of 2 days, to distribute these gift bags to the people that contributed money for the bags. In addition to that, we'd like to be able to give them a tour of the Agri-Nature Center. Maximum, I would say, would be 30 people, all stretched out over a 2-day period, so they know what's going on over there. And we would like for the village to give us a full-page ad in the Village Vision, which we would give you all the artwork, so people will realize that we're still alive and well, and the festival is not what it used to be, but it will be next year. So we would also like the use of bathrooms at the Agri-Nature Center for these 2 days that we're going to distribute these gift baskets, so the people can be there, walk around the property and use the bathrooms as needed. We would like to have parking for 50 cars, not lined off, just there's enough parking in that one particular area that doesn't need any mowing or any harvesting. It's just a dirt field over there. And let's see, we would like to use the Agri-Nature Center for these 2 days. So we distribute the gifts for the walking tour and perhaps a yoga demonstration. And all this would be in keeping with the state and local conditions of the coronavirus restrictions. So we're not asking for any money from the village or any police protection or any traffic control or any preparation of the Agri-Nature Center, because we're not going to have a crowd of people there all at one time. And we're going to handle the distribution and presenting of the gift baskets to the people. We would like for someone from the village to solicit the merchants on 4th Street to, if they'd like to participate, to give us a gift coupon or whatever they would like to have. We would then include that in our gift basket to encourage people to go down 4th Street to redeem their coupon. Any questions?
Do the trustees have any questions? I would like to comment briefly. I do think this is a pretty interesting idea, and my staff will be working with you very closely on all the details. But trustees, do you have any questions or comments of David Hudson or Katie Snap at this time?
Mayor
Sandra.
Mr. Hudson, I hear you talk about the gift baskets, but I didn't hear who the recipients are going to be. Are these people who purchased them, or are you donating them to a certain cause? I didn't quite pick up on that piece.
Yeah, I didn't say that. That's why. Sorry. No, we have a very large list, email list of people who have attended the festival over the years, and we're going to solicit them if they would like to participate in another manner, because we are really we're going to lose money this year. There's no question about that. We would like to minimize our loss, but we'd also like to include people that like lavender related items, including some lavender, and a memorabilia of this year's Lavender Festival, which is not really a festival. So that's who we're going to solicit. And our sponsors over the years, if they want to participate.
Any other questions from the trustees?
Yes, David, this is Alan. Do you have dates in mind?
Yes, the same date that we would have had the festival, which is the 11th and 12th of July.
That date makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Trustee Riccobeni.
Was Ms. Pacheco's question answered?
I believe so.
I think so.
I guess the only thing that I didn't hear an answer on, are these being then donated to these?
No, people are buying these gift baskets. They're ranging price from $35 to $45
Online purchase.
and on online. So they will pre-purchase, and we, the Lavender Committee, are going to assemble these baskets with the products from the vendors and from our own lavender pickings to then give them their baskets that they paid for.
May I speak?
Yes, Katie. More clarification. Here's Katie Snap.
If it pleases the Board of Trustees, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, a brief description of why we're taking this approach. Because we did not want to completely cancel the Lavender Festival, we thought a good backup plan could be to have what we might call a virtual Lavender Festival. We could still engage all of our vendors that had to do with agricultural products by having them still sell plants, picked lavender, and other agricultural type products. And the way that we would get these out to the public instead of having the public on site in a festival would be to sell them online in some sort of a packaged gift basket, or they'll probably actually be in some sort of a bundle in a market bag. That's where we'll make, the only money that we will be able to make is by selling those. So we'll have a set number of those for sale at some sort of a small profit, but it still won't, it won't end up outweighing the cost of the fest itself. But we thought to be able to keep the brand of the festival alive for another year, as well as to have the exposure for those vendors, that it would be worthwhile. It helps them stay in business, and it is a prime time for many of them that are harvesting that time. We also wanted to engage the village in seeing what level of participation the North Fourth merchants would want in this, and we would be glad to help coordinate whatever that might look like with you all. And then the only other piece of that we thought was relatively new and fun and unique was that because this is a virtual festival, when they come down to pick up their lavender bundles or their gift bags, they will be on site at the Agri-Nature Center, and we thought it would be a great time for them to get to know our primary beneficiary, Rio Grande Community Farms, and tour the Agri-Nature Center area, maybe take a walk out in the open space with their family. We might possibly have some sort of other demonstration there on site, very, very limited, but it'd be a great time for them to get to know a little bit about the history of the village. That night, we're hoping to do demonstrations online. We've got Maya Mays, as you know, knows how to cook with lavender, and we thought, well, we could do a couple of Facebook demonstrations so that if someone comes and buys one of those bags and it has culinary lavender in it, maybe they have a party at their house that night and tune in at 5 o'clock to watch a demonstration, or they get online with Kelly Jo and do a paint class together. So we're still being creative around that, but we didn't want to completely toss out the idea of a lavender festival since we can't do a mass gathering.
Any other comments from the governing body?
Comment, this is Tom Riccobene. Working with Katie and David over the last few months, and Ms. Simon has been just a delight. And I think that as a village, that we should do everything we can in order to have them do this virtual planning that they've got, subject to approval of Administrator Haynes and an understanding about how this might happen. So we're not saying it's a green light to go with whatever, but at the same time, I think that it sounds wonderful to me. And if we could get in the 4th Street businesses, what a great opportunity as well to reintroduce our 4th Street at the same time. And so I would say that that's a very good, and thank you, Katie and David, for your presentation today.
Thank you, Trustee Riccobene.
One other,
Any other comments?
if I may state in this, is there's a fall tour de farms that Fergus sponsors. We would like to participate in that as a lavender-centric, agricultural-centric bicycle tour. So whatever Fergus can come up with, and Ann, we would like to participate in any way we can in that event. I participated personally. It's a fabulous event. If you're into bicycling, it's great. It's a good show of the village and agriculture at the same time.
I agree, David. Unless there are further comments, thank you very much, Katie Snap and David Hudson, for your Lavender Festival update.
Thank you,
We're going to move to item 6.
Thank you for your time.
You bet. The consent agenda. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. 6A is the minutes of the April 22nd, 2020 special meeting. I need a motion to approve this item.
Motion to approve.
I need a second. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like some discussion.
Sure.
I think on page 25, new business, letter A, I felt like that statement really shortcutted the meeting. It was not only a meeting about the status of the village financials, but also a meeting over the concerns for the upcoming budget and the financial crisis. And there's no mention of that. This sounds like we just had a nice little meeting to talk about where we were for the year. And I think that missed the whole point of a big part of the meeting.
Do you have a... Go ahead, Trustee Lewis.
Oh, I just think that should be amended
Okay.
to be a little more detailed as to the facts of the meeting and what transpired.
So, Ms. Simon, do you want to try to amend that to more accurately reflect what Trustee Lewis is saying?
Yes, I mean, I am happy to work with Danielle to better flesh out some of the things that we discussed. Would that be amenable to you, Trustee Lewis?
Yes, I think there's just no mention of that. Everybody at the meeting was concerned about the financials and gross receipts and the impact that this COVID virus is going to have on our village and our budgets. And I think it needs to just be much more detailed than that general statement there.
Should we in fact defer this from this particular meeting and take it up again at the June meeting?
Agreed.
Therefore, I need a motion to defer.
I would make a motion to defer. This is Alan.
I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote to defer this item to the June 2020 agenda. Trustee Rael.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item is the departmental reports for the May 13th meeting, which is the one we're doing right now. These departmental reports are written and reflect activities for the period listed in the individual reports and are included in the May packet. Does the governing body, any of the trustees, have any questions about any of the departmental reports for the May 13th, 2020 meeting that we are now having?
Mayor?
Yes.
Which, I guess I'm a little confused. Which reports are we looking at now?
Okay, these would be the reports that were other than the March reports. Basically the April reports. If you take a look, some of them say March and April, others.
So did I misspeak earlier in or referencing the department report that I referenced earlier, or was that the one I was supposed to be referencing?
You can do it either way. I noticed that, like for example, in Maria Rinaldi's departmental report, it's dated April 2020. So, and some of the other ones said March and April. So I think to make this clearer, if the Board of Trustees has reviewed these reports, and other than the question you asked a little while ago, if there are any questions on anything in the departmental reports, this is the time to ask that question because the staff is supposed to be on this call, okay?
Okay.
This is Pablo Real. I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding the report from Tiffany Justice, page 31.
Okay.
I'm just curious about the Pizza 9 was not listed as closing down. I wonder what happened to it.
Ms. Justice, are you still on?
Yes, Mayor, trustees, I will look into the status of Pizza 9 and double check its closure date or if its status is still open. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Being none, let's move to item 8, financial business. Item 8A is the discussion and approval of the cash report for March 2020. Trustee Riccobeni, you wanted to address the body before Treasurer Haynes makes her report. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I have several questions on the cash report today. However, I'm going to hold these until the most current report, which is going to be April.
Okay.
I would ask when we do go through April that we go through each fund slowly, and before moving on to the next, that the trustees have ample time to comment, ask questions, or discuss each fund.
Of course.
After discussions and approval of the cash reports, and before moving on to agenda number 9, I would like to have an opportunity to address the body.
Of course. Treasurer Nancy Haynes, the March 2020 cash report, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, trustees, the ending cash balance at March 31st was $5,175,756.57. And that represented an increase of $565,076.63. So our year-to-date deficiency of revenues over expenditures is $623,153.46. And we received the Small Cities Assistant Grant from the state for $402,515.09. And I must add that that came in at a very good time. In addition to that, I'd also like to note that we did receive $11,522 from the state, and that was out of that $900,000 grant for 4th Street improvement. And we also purchased a street sweeper for $21,250. And I believe, Trustee Braille, that was probably one of the checks that you were questioning for this particular report. So before we go on to April, I have any questions for the March?
I have also the radar awning, $1,557.84.
Yes, that is an awning company, and what I have down is it is a Shade, S-A-I-L. I do not know what the location is.
I wonder if Tammy might know, Treasurer Haynes.
Mayor Trustee Real, yes, the location of that shade is at the Agri-Nature Center.
Okay.
Any other questions about the March 2020 cash report?
Yes, this is Alan, and I have a few questions on some of the checks. Page 81, the Century Group, $1,550.
Mr. Mayor, Trustee Lewis, that was the concrete monument pedestal, and that goes to the Agri-Nature Center. It holds the plaque that was dedicated to Mayor Abraham for the Agri-Nature Center, the Larry P. Abraham Nature Center. So that's the concrete pedestal that goes underneath that.
Okay, and then Cottonwood Classical Prep, $500.
Yes, that was a refund for the barn use fee.
Engineered floors on the next page.
That was a carpet. It was a prepaid shipment plus the order for the carpet.
And where did that carpet go?
Miss Simon, you probably know.
Mayor, trustees, I believe that was for, and I might have to ask Tammy to back me up, but I believe that was for the apartment over the AAA storage when we had to, when the Johnsons vacated the dwelling, we had to paint and recarpet that facility so that Raul Candelaria could move in.
Okay.
Mayor Trustee Lewis, yes, I do want to confirm with Ann that is the correct location.
Okay, thank you. The next page, ODB Company. $567.
Okay, that was Poly Wafer Con, 24x6. That was the description.
Could you repeat that, please, Nancy?
Yeah, it says Poly, P-O-L-Y, Wafer, W-A-F-E-R, Con, 24x6. So I'm assuming this is an abbreviation.
Mayor and Trustee Lewis, those were parts for the new street sweeper.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question I have is $18,000 check to the law firm. That seems like an exorbitant amount, and I'd like to know what it was spent on.
Do you want, Administrator Simon, would you like to have Nan Winter comment on that?
Sure thing. I don't have her invoice in front of me. I know that we had a lot of issues coming before us, especially related to the short-term rental issue. But if Nan is on the phone and recalls some of the larger expenses or the hours that were primarily spent for this particular invoice, I'd be happy to defer.
Mr. Mayor, trustee, I don't have it in front of me either. I can probably find it in my office here. Our work sort of ebbs and flows, so it's not an indication of what the monthly amount will be. In fact, I think we just issued you an invoice for April that was about $4,000. So it's just sort of the timing of the work that comes in. And if you want to give me a minute, I can go ahead and try and find that invoice.
I don't know that we need to necessarily take the time now, but I would like to either be able to see the invoice. I understand how it ebbs and flows. I can say as a trustee, that's probably as big as I've seen it. I'm not questioning your work at all, man. I'm just questioning how we're using you and in what projects we have going that we're spending so much on legal fees. So I would like to see the invoice.
Okay, I'll make sure you get the last 3 months of invoices. And I'll look for it now. It might actually be on my desktop here somewhere.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on this cash report?
I do have a question and a comment.
Sure.
Mayor. I didn't see, and I don't know if it's standard procedure, but I did not see a general fund public facilities 1960 statement in the March's packet. I don't know if that was just left out or if that's just kind of, it can change from month to month. I just wasn't sure. So I thought I would bring that up. And I don't know if somebody can address that first. And then secondly, it seems to me that there is always questions on the checks. And I know that I often have them, and I typically talk to Tammy prior to the meetings. But is it possible to do another column that kind of provides the trustees with a description of what the checks are for? Would that, to me, that just seems like it would be a more helpful way to kind of go through and see what these checks are for, if there was just a brief description. Some of them are obvious, but some of them are definitely not obvious.
Administrator Simon, do you want to address that briefly?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Mayor and Trustee Pacheco, we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. And I don't know if it's Tammy or Nancy with regard to the missing statement in the March packet.
Mr. Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, could you repeat what the statement that is missing?
And unless it was misplaced somewhere else and I just didn't catch it, it is the general fund, public facilities, number 1960.
Tammy, do you know what she's talking about?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco.
50.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear what that comment was.
Trustee Pacheco, it is on page 50. It's under animal control / parks streets. The title may have changed,
Okay.
but
Maybe
that is
maybe that
Title
was-
1, 1960.
Thank you,
It-
Nancy.
Any other comments on the March 2020 cash report? I need a motion to approve this cash report.
I make a motion to approve the March 2020 cash report.
I need a
Second.
second. Any
Second.
discussion? I'm going to call for the question, a call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
Trustee Lewis,
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco,
Sorry, I'm not quick to the button. Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
We are now moving to item B, discussion and approval of the cash report for April 2020. I'm going to let Treasurer Haynes start, and then we're going to move slowly per the directive of the governing body on each and every item that they want to discuss, and we should take as much time as necessary to go through this cash report. Treasurer Haynes.
Mr. Mayor, trustees, the April 30th cash balance was $5,059,783.65. And that represented a decrease of $115,972.92. So the year-to-date deficiency of revenues over expenditures is $409,045.04. So this month we paid our fourth quarter payment to Bernalillo County for fire and EMS services, the $113,300. We also had a capital expenditure for the re-roofing of the barn that totaled $46,872.45. We expended $86,647.86 to Barbarian Stam for the 4th Street revitalization. And we also had the payment to Bernalillo County for fourth quarter fire protection fund distribution. And that was for $24,434.20. However, we also received the $24,434.20 from the state grant. So that was a wash.
So let me ask this question. Do the trustees want to go through page by page, beginning with page 88? Is that your desire?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to page 88. Do you want to, Nancy, do you want to entertain questions, either both you or Tammy on each page? How do you want to do this?
I will wait for the questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have something on the sale of property down that is at the very bottom, 37,195. Is that Old Village Hall?
Yes.
Okay, so that's some money that could be coming to us here at a very important and needed time as we move into this next year.
Mr. Mayor, Trustee Riccobeni, that is if we still decide to entertain that property. I know last year we had talked about it, which is why it was put into the budget, but some issues may have changed that. So I would defer
Okay.
that.
We'll take that up at the proper time then. Thank you very much.
Any other questions on page 88? Let's move to 89. Any questions on 89?
Yes, in mileage reimbursement, the 43010, we've got
We seem to have stalled here.
I think we lost Mr. Riccobene on that. He's no longer connected.
Uh-oh. Treasurer Haynes, do you want to discuss this particular item?
If I could, I'd say, let's wait just a moment, see if, yeah, it was Tom's question. I would let him see it. Let's get him back on if we can.
Sure.
I'm going to go get another glass of water while we're waiting. So
go right ahead.
Just a moment.
Sorry about that.
Okay, we're
having some
back
difficulties.
to
My
item
apologies.
43010. You had a question, Trustee Riccobene.
Yes, thank you very much. Mileage reimbursement number 43010. Just wondering what that is.
Well, it could very well be the mileage, the executive, legislative, and that would be the front office, myself, administrator, and anybody else.
Okay, and on the subscriptions and memberships of $12,000 budgeted, we've got 11,467. What is in that group right there?
Administrator Simon, you have that answer, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Trustee Riccobene. I'm looking at that right now as we prepare next year's budget. Those, there are two items that come out of that line item. One is the membership to the Municipal League. It's, I believe, $4,000, and we get a lot of use. This is the organization that provides protocols for our clerk, provides workshops and training, and really creates the model standard for how we conduct business in the village. So it's a very important member organization. The other is our membership to the Council of Governments. With that membership, we also get a seat on the board of the Metropolitan Transportation Board, which enables us to get in line for federal road funding, in addition to other emergency services, train, bus, other public transportation services. So we feel that those two organizations are very important to the operations of the village.
That was the first one was what?
The New Mexico Municipal League.
Municipal League. Is the National League of Cities included in that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor.
Administrator Simon, I think you have that number.
I guess I'm confused at the question. Is the League of Cities membership included in that line item? Is that the question?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm
Question.
sorry. I thought you were asking if it was part of the municipal league.
No.
You know, I'm so sorry. I don't have that number at my fingertips. I can break that out for you.
Okay, that's fine.
But it is included in that number. That is.
I know it is.
Yeah, and we used to have the municipal league. From what I understand, the municipal league, if I remember right anyway, we used to be free to us, and now it's a cost to us, right? When
I don't
Mary's
even
on
know
board.
if it was ever free. I mean, Nancy, you've been the treasurer for a long time. What do you know about that?
It's an annual fee.
Mhm. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions on page 89? Let's move to page 90. Any questions on 90?
No questions.
91,
None.
92.
I've got it came up in this. I'm not certainly not picking on this particular fund at all, but I noticed that in each fund there is retirement contributions, healthcare, and then I'm not seeing it in this particular one, but healthcare and retirement contributions in each fund. And it seems as though many times I don't understand the retirement contributions. And so I'd like to be able to get together in a separate time and understand how that particular item works. I think that's, what is the name of that?
PERA.
That's it. Yes. So I'd like to understand that a little bit further. And so we can talk about that at a later time, and I'll address that at the end of this cash report.
Any other questions on page 92? 93.
The one more time, the contract service temp labor, was that for when Tammy was out having a brand new baby?
Yes, it was.
Okay, isn't that wonderful? Okay, very good.
Trustee Pacheco.
I just want to add to Tom's comment about better understanding of the retirement contributions. I hope it's something that can be shared with all of us. I would like to understand it a little better myself, so I hope that either I can be a participant in that particular discussion or it can be shared as part of a meeting.
We'll make that happen.
Thank you.
Page 93.
And once again, on this page, I think we see that healthcare at 130%. And just again, wanting to get our arms around it with this, with our upcoming gross receipts, as our discussion of last meeting really going down. I'm looking through all this very tightly, as I'm sure Ms. Simon is as well, and the rest of the trustees. And so I'm noticing that this particular one, once again, is very high. There may be a good reason for it. But once again, it's showing on each and every department. So that's fine. That's one comment. The next one is the item, let me move my cursor out of the way here. Professional services for engineers is that, what is that particular one for?
Administrator Simon,
apologize
do
if
you?
some of these were answered in past meetings. I'm still going to ask, even though they may have already been answered. So apologize for that.
Yes, no problem. Mayor and Trustee Riccobene, I actually may need Tiffany to remind me, but this, I believe we had services in here for if we ever needed engineers on call to make decisions during planning and zoning issues that arose. And we just do not use those services. So in next year's budget, we're taking them out.
Okay.
Mayor, trustees, if I could jump in, this is Tiffany.
Sure.
This line item was put in by Tim McDonough in preparation for his leaving, specifically for stormwater compliance. So every year we submit an annual permit as part of the MS4 and just maintaining our compliance with the EPA. He has done that in the past. He has a background with public utilities and stormwater, so he was well versed in this. He basically was budgeting for this year's permit to be handled by a different agency. And we didn't know what the cost of that would be. So it was $11,000. And so we won't be addressing the MS4 permit until after July 1st, because the reporting, or up until July 1st, that's going to be the data collection period. And then the report writing has to be done before December 31st.
So you see this moving into next year then?
In a modified form, yes.
Okay.
We did get some reference quotes from other municipalities on how much they spend on this, and we're a much smaller municipality, so we would likely be spending less.
Okay. Thank you, Tiffany. Next one is 45045.
Excuse me, Tom. This is
Yes, sir.
Pablo.
Yeah, go ahead, Pablo. Sorry.
Question on that. The engineer line on item on engineers. As I understand it, it's also used when we need an engineer to look at drainage plans or whatever, when plans are submitted to the village for new construction. We always have to submit it to an engineer to review it, to make sure that they're in compliance. And we just don't take the word of whoever is doing the construction. And maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that's part of it too, is it not?
Trustee Royale, trustees, mayor, that is correct. We have a village designated engineer who reviews grading and drainage plans. Usually we forward that cost on to the applicant. In the meantime, it could be drawn from this fund, but eventually we do get refunded back from the applicant.
All right, thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
I would like to also add that that's where you see the checks for McDowell Engineering. And this particular amount, the $478.97, was the Montoya Multi-Purpose Engineer Review. So that was what is in the current month.
Thank you, Nancy. Another, a couple of 45040 and 45045.
Trustee Riccobene, Mayor, trustees, this is Tiffany again. I can answer those. Stormwater team participation is basically our fee for participating in the Middle Rio Grande Stormwater Quality Management Team. It's part of a requirement as being part of the MS4 permit, and their main focus is on outreach and education. And so all of the member agencies in the MS4 permit do have participation in this group. For 045 construction regulation services, this is our contract with Bernalillo County for building inspections. And so this is an annual payment that I believe is pretty much the same every year.
So it allows us to feed from from their inspectors at no further charge to us for whatever amount we need done?
Yes, that is correct.
Is that what I'm saying?
All building permits will go to Bernalillo County for inspections. They will do certificates of occupancy, and we are not charged an additional amount to this.
Thank you.
Okay, page 94.
Mayor, can I ask one question, just a follow-up question to?
On 93?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Tiffany, have we looked at kind of the average of the permits and the inspections that are being provided the village year after year, and just kind of see, I mean, does that fee structure work, or are we, you know, some years not doing any and some years doing a lot more, or, you know, where have we done any kind of analysis to see if that fee is truly holding up?
Trustee Pacheco, Mayor, trustees, we have not done a recent analysis of this. We can definitely look into that. Bernalillo County not only does our building inspections, but they also do plumbing and electrical and mechanical. And so pretty much it would be likely the cost of a full-time employee who is well-versed in specifically the International Building Code. But I can look into, I guess, the number of building permits that we've done and the costs that are associated with those, and see how it lines up with our contract amount.
Thank you. I think that would just be a good exercise for us.
Okay. Page 94.
Yes, specifically again into per diem 43020. We've got $12,500 or 139% of our budget spent. Another 3,000 just this month, and just would like to know what that is and why it's driving up so much.
Well, I think the money this month was for my trip to the National League of Cities in March. I'm almost certain of that.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and so there was an additional amount of money spent for Trustee Mary Homan last year. She went to National League of Cities, and then after she came back, she gave us an expense report for the prior year, which she had not turned in. And that was an additional cost that we had to bear this fiscal year because we had to pay it. Perhaps some of you have heard this, I'm not sure. Am I correct, Nancy?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and professional fees, computer support.
Trustee Riccobene, that is it includes our normal monthly services. And since we now have to go through Zoom and get set up, that became an additional expense.
Mayor, Trustee Rael, this is Tammy. I also want to say on that, the computer support, this is also due to us going to the cloud. We did have a larger one-time fee for doing that. But being the circumstances we're in right now, it was also a good move to go when we did.
Okay.
This is Alan. I have a question on, I'm wondering if professional services engineers, is this belong in general administration, or is that in the wrong department?
Mayor and Trustee Lewis.
Okay, so what do you want?
Yeah, this is, I misspoke with the $11,000 engineering fee in P and Z. This is the item that we are phasing out.
Okay, thank you.
Do that. I mean, you could send us an email as soon as you can, and we'll answer your questions. We can do it that way.
The contract labor temp services in this month was almost $9,000.
Danielle, okay?
Trustee Rickey, is for Amelia, who is the front desk person.
I would like to interject quickly. Trustee Rael just called me and said that he's lost all power. His iPad is gone, so I am now excusing him from the rest of the meeting, but we still have a quorum, so we can continue. Go ahead.
So Nancy, this is Alan. $9,000 for the front desk temp seems a little high. There's got to be something else in there.
Mayor, Trustee Lewis, this
I
is
would hope.
Tammy. Yes,
Yep.
that includes the front desk temp as well as Maria Rinaldi's contract. She's paid out of there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on page 94?
Yes, insurance, non-employee is just through the roof. Yeah, 57,000. I know we had 60,000 budgeted, but just wondering what what is that?
Nancy?
That's a risk management of some kind or something like that?
It's all the insurance coverages that we have, our general liability, our property, everything, and that's all paid at the very beginning of the year.
Okay. And lastly, workman's compensation insurance, and this comes in a number of times. I mean, it's just way over what we anticipated. And I'm wondering what's driving that. That's tied to wages, I believe, isn't it?
And the number of employees, and as we've increased employees, plus the increase in premium. So there's probably a combination of things that are happening here. More employees, increase in premium. And we may have even under budgeted a little bit, not anticipating the increase in premium.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to page 95. $96,
One more, I'm sorry, I wouldn't catch up. Sorry, Mayor.
$95,
95, contract services, is this all Fred?
yes. Correct, Nancy?
That is correct.
And is this due to the situation that we've been in and where Fred has had to participate more?
Well, Fred is here. He can speak. Fred, would you like to comment on that?
Stand by.
I can hear you.
A lot of it was probably in March because with the COVID-19, setting up the protocols and assisting Ann and Pete and everything.
Thank you.
Any other questions on page 95? 96.
Yes, on this, on wages full-time, it looks like we got a blow up in the right side, and that would carry on down to the total department expenditure as well.
Nancy, would you like to speak to that?
I don't believe that, let's see, that percentage on the far right side is correct. So that could throw things off. If you look at it year to date, we've expended 132 out of the 170,000. So that percentage is not, I think the decimal.
It appears that the percentage is 87%.
Right.
It looks like 2149 jumped out of its column over a column, but it appears that the percentage is correct at 87%.
So I think what's missing is the year-to-date budget variance, which would have thrown that percentage off.
That's somewhere around 62,000, I believe.
Yeah, right. The 170 minus the 132.
So that kicks the
Tammy, do you have that pulled up on your computer?
This is Tammy. I do not have that pulled up. I can try and pull that up as we're sitting here.
Okay. We're going to probably end up around 73%, I think.
Yeah, 87 is not the right number. It's about 73%.
Well, I mean, 70% on expenditure, department expenditures.
Right.
So in total, I think. But we'll see what she comes up with. We can move on while Tammy's doing that. Thank you, Tammy.
Okay. Page 97.
Just a comment on this. Fergus is, I don't know if you're on, but you are one shining star. It's really amazing what you get done and what's happening over there. So I have no problems with this page.
I agree. 98. 99.
I have a few.
Go ahead.
So where does our minimum reserve come in? Is this where we calculate that?
Nancy, do you want to answer that?
The fund expenditures.
When you say minimum reserve, could you expand?
I think we're required not to spend the total fund. Is that right from memory? The total fund expenditures, the 2.5546 million.
We have a required reserve, right?
Correct. I don't have it in front of me. We've never had a problem coming anywhere close to it.
Okay.
I can get that number for you. I usually have it in front of me. I don't tonight.
That's fine.
Mayor, Trustee Riccobene, if I may interject I have that percentage and then I also have a comment on the reserve.
Yes, ma'am.
On the percentage from the previous page, it's 77.75% that we are at. And Nancy, I believe, when I say this, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the reserve is 3/12 of the general fund expenditures.
That's correct.
Yeah, that sounds appropriate.
Of actual expenditures or budget?
Well, actually both. I mean, we have the budget. We have to make sure that we're not exceeding that on our budget, which then means that we would not exceed it in our actual.
Correct.
So it's 3/12 of the 2.5 million?
Right.
Okay.
Any more on 99? Let's go to 100.
Good.
101. 102. 103.
One item on 102, please.
Sure.
Just on the IGA for fire protection and EMF services. I noticed that we budgeted 93,000, and then it seems as though we're at 122 actual, but yet that's also funded. So it seems like this is a pass-through account of some kind.
We budgeted the initial amount, and then we got additional monies from the state.
Right.
And automatically would go over to the county. So whatever we get, we turn over.
It's a pass-through.
Yes. And we may not have the correct number at the very beginning of the year. It's kind of like the smallest city assistance. We budget a certain amount, but we could get more.
Okay.
Looks like Trustee Riccobeni is frozen.
He's gone.
Okay, do we want to wait, take a couple minute breaks to see if he can come back?
Sure, let's take a couple minute break.
Let's take a 2-minute break.
Mr. Mayor, I had muted everyone when they stepped away, so you guys will need to unmute.
I'm back, please. Thank you. I guess this is the sign of the times.
Yes. So we're on page 103.
Okay. I'm good with 103, Mayor.
104.
Okay,
105.
the few items on this. This one has to do with, I'm a little bit confused. Can you tell me what it's, I'm fooled by the name Fine Arts, but then I see Arts and Crafts Market. And so I'm trying to understand, this is apparently the arts and crafts section of the market. Is that right?
Nancy?
Nancy,
I think you're muted, Nancy.
Everybody's muted from the break.
So we need to unmute.
Thank you, Kigo.
Okay. This is the growers market, and why it's named Fine Arts, probably because we do have a fine art component to it. I would defer to Administrator Simon if you need some detail on this particular thing. It's always been a very minor type expense. It just depends on the revenue when it comes in, which is somewhat seasonal. And most of the expenses are due to advertising and so forth. But again, I would defer to Ann on that.
And that, and by the way, Ms. Before you move on, it seems to be tied to the farmers market, which is the very next fund. So I'd like to know how these two work together and why they're separate.
And can,
Yeah, Mayor Trustee Riccobene, the Fine Arts Fund, I'm not sure why it was called Fine Arts Fund, but it is the Arts and Crafts and Growers Market. And they have been an extension of the village for a long time. I have been trying to see how we can get these various entities up on their own. The art market is trying. They their vendors already pay us dues, and they are no longer using us, quote unquote, as a bank. They figured out a way to have a CRS number to get a bank account, a commercial bank account, and so forth. The growers market, on the other hand, because the market vendors are seasonal, we want to encourage agriculture. We want to encourage people who have a bounty of some, crop to come out and participate. And it really is part of our brand. So, so I've held off on making any changes to our partnership with the growers market. And as Nancy said, it's a very minor expense for what we get out of it. It's a big part of our website. They're on our Facebook page. But I want to distinguish it from the following page and the following account, which is the Agriculture Committee. And that's the work that happens down at the Agri-Nature Center with Fergus. Is that correct, Nancy?
Yes, it is.
So you're saying that the farmers market is not part of 3001 Agricultural Committee?
Correct.
Because I see revenues, farmers market revenues in there, and then also printing, publishing, and advertising as well. And so it says farmers market revenues in there, and it also has the expenditures. And so my point is if this is, it seems as though that I'm asking specifically, do we have two different groups working at the farmers market? one for growers and one for arts and crafts?
Oh, Mayor, Trustee Riccobene, you are correct. I misspoke. They are, the arts and craft and the growers market are in these two funds. I apologize. We have an ag committee down at the Agri-Nature Center, and this is not the fund.
Okay.
Apologies. And yes, the two entities are at either side of the parking lot, and they like to share.
They like to share.
They do not like to share.
Oh, they do not like to share. Well, I'm not thinking it's very minor as I look at this. We've got, we've got a significant cash outlay in both of these, and it seems that most of it has to do with printing, publishing, and advertising and supplies. And it would seem to me like we should be able to do that and share. Seems to me like it's all the village farmers market. And so I think that's a spot that we need to really look at next year's budget, and we need to figure out what's going on here with this.
I agree completely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Alan. I have a question. So the farmers market, which is under the agricultural committee, does not fall under the, what's that called? Agricultural enterprises. So none of that has to do with his budget?
Yeah, I think the fact that that 3001 is called agricultural committee is a little confusing. But I think it's been there forever and it just stayed that way.
Right.
In the past, it's been very minimal, and yes, it really started to increase that. I agree. If there's a way that we can try to cut down there, that would be appropriate.
Any other questions on 106? Okay, let's move to 107.
Good.
108.
Good.
109.
Expenditures, fine arts, $7,800. And
Yeah, Trustee Riccobene, that is a summary of the previous three funds. So you see where we have.
oh, okay. Yeah, my apologies. Okay, yes. And once again, that's $14,000 between those two, and that just doesn't seem correct. So we'll look at that one more in detail later.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
110.
Okay.
111. 112.
Question on go ahead. Got a question on 113.
113.
Just a question with this COVID going on, and the state just seems to be clawing for every dollar they can get, and they're also busting they're also very worried about busting their budget. Have we ever been given I don't know what the right word is. Have we ever been had a grant from the state and then take it back from us?
Well, they just took 250,000 from us. At least we believe they have. They sent us a letter just the other day. Nancy, you have seen that letter, correct?
No, I have not.
Tammy, why don't you describe the letter?
Mayor, trustees, the letter came from DFA, and what it stated in summary was that any general fund appropriations that were given out during FY19 and FY20 were being frozen for this time. So they weren't fully saying they've taken them away, but at this time they're frozen. We cannot do any drawdowns on them. We can't do anything with them at this time. But since the question is being asked about this 900,000, we have confirmed with them that This money has already been encumbered for this project and obligated. And since that is the case, this $900,000 appropriation, appropriation that you're seeing is okay. And we will not have this one taken or frozen.
Where does the 250 come from, Tammy?
The 250,000 that was just described was from the state as well. It was a capital appropriation for improvements at the Agri-Nature Center.
And did they take it back, or they froze it even though we weren't at the reversion date?
That's correct.
Yes, Mayor Trustee Lewis, they have frozen that even though we're not at the reversion date. Anything that they've granted to anyone during those 2 fiscal years has been frozen as of right now.
Thank
And
you,
that
Tammy.
applies to every community in the state of New Mexico. So that's a hard pill to swallow. Any other questions on 113? 114?
Yeah, let me catch up. Nope.
115? $116?
Good.
117? That's the 250.
So that one, it's Sandra Pacheco. Do we just keep that figure in our budget in hopes that it comes back, or do we remove it even from the budget?
Well, I think the proper thing to do is to remove it from the budget, but we should wait for DFA to give us the final clarification that we're not going to get it. At least that's my judgment call right now. Does that answer your question, Trustee Pacheco?
Thank you.
Okay, page 118. It looks like Trustee Riccobene has been frozen again.
Well, I guess we just sit tight.
We can.
I'm gonna mute everybody's microphones right now. You can unmute yourself when you need to.
Okay.
My apologies again. My apologies, Mayor.
Okay, we're on page 119. I would point out on this page that we budgeted $500,000 to purchase property for the village center. We are no longer going to have to spend that money for that purpose. And I have asked our village clerk and our staff to see if we can just put that 500,000 in next year's operating budget. Okay?
Very good.
120, page 120. 121.
This is Alan. I don't know who we talked to, you know, I guess maybe one of the presenters tonight, but is there any talk about looking at refinancing these bonds?
Nancy, do you have a comment on that?
Yes, Mayor Trustee Lewis, this is our open space bond. So we have discussed whether or not it would be worth trading it in for a lower interest rate. In the past, we have said no by the time we have all the additional fees that you have to incur when you go through this whole process. The amount would not be beneficial to us. So it's come up a couple times. So we've always said no. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't, look at it again. But this is different. This set of bonds is different than what is later on the agenda.
Okay.
Specifically to the village. This is completely different.
It's certainly not my area of expertise. It was just something I was curious if we discussed that. Thank you.
122. $123. Doesn't look like there's anything on 124, and then we have 125, which is our roll-up sheet. Any comments on 125?
I have a question, please.
Yes.
If Treasurer Haynes or Tammy would have, I see ending cash equivalents of $5,059,000. What accrued expenses go against this? What would be the total of our liabilities on our balance sheet that go against this number?
Treasurer Haynes
I
or
would
Tammy?
defer to Tammy, since she has all the detail on that.
Tammy?
Mayor Trustee Riccobene, so the detail, we don't have many liabilities that are actually against this cash balance. We have no accrued expenses like accrued payables or accrued payroll. Right now on our balance sheet, really the liabilities we have are our net pension liability, and that's just for, what is the word I'm looking for? That's for disclosure purposes. That's really the biggest thing on our liability sheet that I can think of right now. I don't have that in front of me right now, so I am unable to say if there's anything else I can think that goes against it.
So let me offer this comment. If you look at the number just to the right of that, it shows that from the beginning of the fiscal year, we are positive $1,436,000. I would like to point out to the trustees that in the last two audits, if you go back to 2019, we were plus $1,627,000. If you look at the 2018 audit, we were plus $1,694,000. So in basically over the last 3 years, we have been to the plus $5 million. Treasurer Haynes, do you have any comment on that?
I think you pretty well stated it, Mayor Lopez. What I would say too is that this is just a cash report. There should not be any accruals for liabilities or accruals for revenues in this particular report. If we switch over to the balance sheet and income statement, that's where we have a modified accrual system. And that's where, especially at year end, Tammy's going to have to come up with the accruals for both revenues and for expenditures. But it's kind of difficult to relate it because this is pure cash. Whereas our financial statements, our balance sheet, our income statement, those are modified accruals. So that's kind of mixing, two things together. And I don't know if that answers your question, Trustee Riccobene.
For now, it's fine. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, we are now at the check register for the April 2020 cash report.
This is Alan. The roof for I guess that's for the barn?
Yes.
We had to do that at this time?
It was in our budget and we made the decision to do it.
If I could also interject, Mayor and Trustee Lewis, that was done in February.
Okay. What about the check to Cameron Weber for 1,021?
Trustee Lewis, Mayor Lopez, that was labor and equipment rental for the AgriNature project.
Okay, and Charles Ross?
That was weld the pipe fence at the AgriNature Center.
A couple $1,000 to the Conservancy District on the bottom of the next page. 1,900.
The description that I saw in the checks was for 3 maps, but I am not sure exactly what that is for.
Do you know, Tammy? Do you recall?
Mayor, Trustee Lewis, at this point, I don't recall. I would have to look at the invoice in my office to do that.
Okay.
Could you do that, Tammy, and just send us out an email or a text or something?
Mayor,
tomorrow,
Trustee
whenever.
Lewis, yes, I would be happy to do that. Yes, I will.
The next page, office team.
That is for the temporary, Amelia, the front desk.
Okay. We've discussed Raul Candelaria. $35,000 to the attorney.
That looks like it's 2 months worth.
I mean, that coupled with the 18,000, that's $54,000 in a few months.
Mr. Mayor?
That's outrageous. It seems like, man, and again, Nan, I am not talking about the quality of your work. I'm talking about how are you using you. I mean, there's sure nothing I know of that it's a major issue that is consuming this kind of time. And so I'd sure like to be enlightened.
Mr. Mayor, Trustee Lewis, I did have a chance to look at some of what's going on here. I think the 18,000 was probably something from the November, December timeframe. I think keep in mind that what you're seeing are payments from late 2019 through current day. So I still don't have access to the invoices, but I did run using my PC Law material on my desktop here, all the time that Stelzner has billed to the village since January 1st. All the time billed to the village since January 1st through today comes to about $45,000. We average about $10,000 a month, not including taxes, because we are mindful of the budget that was given to us via the RFP process. So best I can tell, what you're seeing our payments for work that was done in late 2019 through probably March. I'm also suspecting that there might be an overpayment in there because the 23,000 doesn't reflect in the books I have access to on my desktop here. So I'm pretty confident that to date, from January 1 through today, we have billed you $45,906. Now I can give you also a rundown of what all of that time includes now that I have a list in front of me. But we have multiple litigations, including a Montoya appeal pending in district court. We have short-term rental issues going on. We have a couple issues with Judge Ma regarding enforcement actions. We've had multiple consults with Tiffany regarding applications and appeals. Of course, we attend every P&Z meeting and every board meeting. I'm just kind of running through here. We've been working with Mario Rinaldi on some issues on 4th Street, including some legal opinions related to some curb cuts that should or should not happen, some lighting specifications. We've got an issue with Mr. Ross, a litigation with Mr. Ross. That would be a foreclosure. We recently filed a $114,000 lien there. We've got issues with Gemini and some lighting issues. Let's see, I'm just trying to give you a rundown. I'm just going through this list. With respect to, been multiple notices of tort claims with respect to accidents on 4th Street. We had to create a record proper for the Montoya appeal. Again, a couple more criminal matters with respect to my Estes and enforcement actions in front of Judge Ma. I'm still scrolling here. I'm getting into April now. And I think not much in April, not too much in May at the moment. We are working with Ms. Rinaldi. We're in the middle of developing an amendment to your excavation ordinance regarding a moratorium on curb cuts from Schulte to Ortega. I've requested my bookkeeper to pull the invoices from January through April or May. But I suspect, you can't look at those numbers in the check register and associate them with a single month.
Right. Well, that clarifies a lot. I know we typically run in the $10,000 range, and that's why these numbers seemed very high to me.
Yeah, they look kind of ugly, and I'm almost embarrassed to look at them myself. But when you quizzed me earlier, my bookkeeper would kill me if I got into her actual billing folio, but I did get into the time listing, and I'm confident that we average about 10,000, not including taxes, a month. And just looking at January through today, it's at $45,000, which is about 10,000 a month.
Okay, all righty.
I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, it helps a whole lot. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Any other questions on the check register for April 2020? If there are none, I need a motion to approve the April 2020 cash report.
I would make a motion to approve the April 2020 cash report.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I'm going to call for the question with a roll call vote and then let Tom make his statement, okay? Trustee Rael is not on. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
Tom, you're on.
Thank you very much. Mayor, trustees, with the GRT forecasting that I proposed last meeting, and I was really fully expecting to see an updated one today, based on our discussions from last meeting, and also I'm not just a bit concerned. I'm very concerned with the preliminary budget not being in front of us at this time. I would like to propose a retreat in the next 2 weeks with the mayor, trustees, Administrator Simon, Ms. Winter, and our treasurer in discussion about our budget and process.
Is that your statement, Tom?
Mayor, trustees, I would like to propose a special meeting at the nearest possible date, and come together and work on this. At that meeting, I would like for this body to inspect and discuss any and all contracts, personnel ordinance, personnel policies, public employee retirement act, balance sheet, income statement, as well as preliminary budget to work on so that we can get a true feel for all costs going into next year. This special meeting will be a work session to understand our go forward thoughts and prepare for a budget, a very difficult, what I believe to very difficult income year next year. That's it.
Okay, well, let me offer this. We were going to have a retreat at the end of March, so it would not be inappropriate to have one the end of May. So why don't the trustees give me and our staff so that we can work with our attorney, our incoming treasurer, and our staff so that we can have this retreat before the end of May, because I think it's probably, even though I think it may be early, but nevertheless, it can't hurt to have this retreat. Do you expect it to take 6 to 8 hours? Do you think it'll take that long? Trustee Riccobene?
Sir, I'm not sure how long it'll take. I'm certainly willing to do it and really get a good understanding. We got a lot of good minds here, both in staff as well as in this board. I think it's our responsibility to get our arms around this. You as the chief you're the chief financial officer yourself. And right. So we want to make sure that we've looked at everything that we can going into next year and make certain. I was really happy to hear that there's a few dollars that are going to be put back into the general fund or wherever they are going to go for next year. There was a number of, as I looked through this, it looks like we were a bust on a few items and other items that we were under. And so I think this year we're going to look pretty good, but that doesn't mean that we're not headed for some very difficult times, as evident from the state clawing back and freezing funds. And so I see a very difficult time. And so I'd like to hear from the other trustees what they think as well. But thank you very much for considering this.
Go ahead.
This is Alan. Trustees? Yes, this is Alan. I sort of echo what Tom says. I think the village has done a great job over the last several years. I think we've done a good job in the last year. But I think this is extraordinary what is coming at us. And I hope that everybody understands. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that revenues will be down 25% next year. And if that's the case, that you're talking about $1.4 million. It is not going to be easy to cut $1.4 million out of this budget, or dollars out of this budget. And it's going to take a lot of work. And I sure as a trustee don't want to get a proposed budget to me the middle of June, because I can't see without a whole lot of work how we're going to get to that point. And I think it's something that we need to meet on and discuss sooner rather than later, because preliminary numbers and things I'm hearing out there, I don't think 25% is unreasonable at all for our revenues.
Any other comments? It would have to be, I'm pretty sure, a special meeting. It will have to be a retreat. So we'll have to work with the board of trustees on dates between now and May 31st. but I think it's not a bad idea. We were going to have a retreat anyway, so let's go ahead and do it. That's my personal opinion.
Mr. Mayor, I know that we'll need to make public notice on this.
Yes.
And I would propose that we allow the public to be able to dial in and listen.
Of course.
And I would like to have us, though, be face-to-face and separated appropriately in the same space so that we can talk to each other and understand what's going on and have a nice fluid discussion.
My understanding from the governor's directive today is that if we do have people in this room, we will all have to wear a mask for that time. So if everybody's prepared to wear a mask, which I am, of course, our staff will have to wear one. I think that's the way it's going to have to be in the future for quite a while, actually. That's my personal gut feeling. So we're going to make it happen, okay?
Very good, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
That sounds wonderful.
Okay, item 9, there are no public hearings, no old business, no announcement. We have new business, 12. Pursuant to section 3-11-6, parentheses 1, NMSA 1978, the mayor shall submit for confirmation the names of persons who shall fill the appointive offices of the municipality to the Board of Trustees for approval. 12A, confirmation of appointment of Will Fisher as village treasurer. Will Fisher, I believe you're still on the call. Is that correct? Kiko, can you check on that?
Stand by, he's coming in now.
Okay.
Mr. Fisher, if you can unmute your sound and or video.
Hey, hello, everybody. This is Will.
Hi, Will, are you on?
Yes, sir, I am.
Thank you, Will. I apologize for the length of this meeting. However, this was a meeting that was really 2 meetings in one. So that's the reason it's taken longer. We are looking forward to you being our next village treasurer because our current treasurer is ready to retire, I believe, and leave being the treasurer, having been here for 24 years. Do you have anything to say to the Board of Trustees?
Looking forward to work with everybody and hearing Nancy talk or Miss Haynes talk. I know I got some big shoes to fill, so I hope I don't let you all down, but I'm willing to do my part. So thank you for the opportunity.
You're very welcome, Will. Does the governing body have any questions of Will? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I need a second.
I will second.
Any discussion? I'm going to call for the question and call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael is not here. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
Will Fisher, you are now our new village treasurer. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, wish me luck.
Yes. Item B, pursuant to section 3-11-6, parentheses 1, NMSA 1978, the mayor shall submit for confirmation the names of persons who shall be employed by the municipality to the Board of Trustees for approval. Administrator Simon, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor and trustees. We are thrilled to hire on a temporary basis Sabrina Apodaca. She is going to be helping Fergus out at the Agri-Nature Center. This is a hire that you all approved back in February. We were able to repurpose some funding for some vehicles that we didn't end up purchasing. And we found Sabrina after a long search, and we have her for a couple of months. We're going to be taking a hard look at the budget to see if we can keep her, but it obviously is budget dependent, and we understand that, and so does she.
Does the governing body have any questions about this? Because she's not on the call. I need a motion.
I do have a question.
Sure.
I want to make sure. And you did say she understands too that she's subject to the budget.
Correct.
with that being said, then, and if it's something that we feel like we need, then I would make a motion to approve this person for administrative assistant at the Agri-Nature Center.
I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? I'm going to call for the question and call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael is not here. Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni?
Looks like he's gone.
Uh-oh. Well, 2 votes is all you need, so we're going to have to wait. We have another item, and that's the bonds. In my 28 years as an elected official, we've had probably a dozen meetings that lasted till 11 o'clock. So this is not really unusual.
It was a 2-4, Mayor.
Well, that's true. It's 2 meetings in one. So it's, I mean, you know, one lasts from 7 to 9, the other one lasts from 9 to 11.
You know, we could help the budget if maybe we find Tom Riccobeni for all these times he goes off air. That could help the budget considerably, so.
I agree. Nancy, I want to thank you for all your years of service as our village treasurer. I first met you in 1996. Did you hear what I said, Nancy?
I did, Mayor. I think, what I recall, I came on the board like in 1999, and you were already a trustee at that time.
And I was Mayor Pro Tem also. It was
Yes,
Mayor Barry Stowers.
Yeah, so we go back a long way.
Yes, we do.
So, but it's really been an honor for me to serve under 3 mayors now, Mayor Stowers, Mayor Abraham, and you, Mayor Lopez.
Thank you. Well, we don't want you to be a stranger, Nancy. You can come to Village Hall anytime you feel like it.
Okay, after tonight, I'll come out.
Oh, gosh.
Nancy, are you retiring 100%?
I am.
Good for you. Well,
I
congratulations.
am. Thank you very much. I feel like I'm really very optimistic because I feel that this administration is a good one. The board is very sharp and the staff is a great staff. So I am very thankful to Will Fisher coming on board. And so I feel like I'm leaving everything in good hands.
Hi, Tom.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, we're on to C,
Just
discussion
a
and
quick
approval.
comment. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Nancy, for all you've done. I've just started to get to know you and how sharp you are, and I'm sorry to see you leave, but I'm certainly happy we have a capable replacement as well. So I'm looking forward to the future, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, we have item C, discussion and approval of resolution 2020-05-01, a resolution declaring the intent of the Board of Trustees authorizing the issuance and sale of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque Educational Facilities refunding revenue bonds for the Albuquerque Academy. Administrator Simon.
I think I'm going to turn it right on over to Nan, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, and I am going to turn it over to Chris Muirhead. And I know he is probably dialed in a couple different directions. Mayor, you may recall that the village has done this once before on behalf of Albuquerque Academy.
Yes.
And Mr. Muirhead contacted, I believe, your office regarding a refunding of the Albuquerque Academy issue. And
Uh-oh.
And I think that might have been Mr. Muirhead, but I'm going to turn it over to him. Let's see if we can't get a connection.
Kiko, can you check on Mr. Muirhead?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Muirhead. You can
Can you hear
unmute,
me?
but if you have more than one device on, you need to mute one of them.
Okay.
Because we're getting feedback.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We are still, Mr. Muirhead, we are still getting the feedback.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
We can hear you.
Chris, if you would introduce yourself, Mayor, trustees, Chris is an attorney with the
Hello?
Module Law Firm.
ID followed by pound.
Mr. Muirhead, we can hear you.
Enter your host key followed by pound. If you are a participant, please press pound to continue. The meeting has not started. Please wait or try again later.
Mr. Muirhead, we can hear you.
Hey, Nan, it's Chris. This computer is not working.
Mr. Muirhead, can you try now?
Can you hear me on the computer?
I can.
No? Oh, they can hear me. I just can't hear them. Can you hear me on the computer, Nan? Okay, so I'm going to talk, and if there's questions, just let me know. I can hear the audio from the board. So I assume you all can hear me. If I'm not, the computer is not letting me hear you, absent the phone. But what you have in front of you is a resolution, just a preliminary resolution, to bring notice to you that the Albuquerque have to refund some bonds that the village issued for the academy in 2010. And these bonds are not an obligation of the village, the obligation solely of the Albuquerque Academy, which is a 501c3 entity, borrow money at a tax rate, but it cannot do it directly. It needs a governmental entity to do it on their behalf, and so that's where the Village of Los Ranchos comes in. What we're looking to do is take 2010 bonds that the village issued and finance them just like you would refinance your home, because the interest rates are considerably lower than when they did this in 2010. They are in position to save several $1 million in debt service over that time. And we would, this particular act, just to let you know that a significant resolution and ordinance is on its way at the June meeting. And just make sure I can answer any questions that you might have about it. Again, this is a preliminary step leading to the June meeting. Consider the actual ordinance to refund that. I'm happy to answer. I hope you all heard that.
Do the governing body have any questions? We've done this before. Okay, I need a motion.
Motion to approve State of New Mexico, Village of Los Ranchos, the Albuquerque resident.
I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? I'm going to call
Ann, are
for
you
the
still there?
question and call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael is not here. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Riccabini.
Yes.
Thank you. We're at item 13, trustee informal discussion. Trustee Rael is not here. Trustee Lewis, do you have anything?
The only thing I had tonight is that I got a call from the people, from the gentleman over on Gardeno Avenue about weeds and potholes. So I told him I would present it to at the trustees meeting and have the village look into it. So that's
Okay,
all I have.
and we
at this
will do
time.
that. Trustee Pacheco.
I do have just a couple of things. I just wanted to bring to the attention in case everybody didn't hear. This is just such a time of such negative news and negative stories. I'm sure all of you have maybe heard or not heard, but we do have the oldest COVID-19 survivor as a resident here in the village of Los Ranchos.
That's correct.
And we're talking the oldest in what in the world, I guess, at this point.
Probably.
Which I thought was just a really cool story, and I think we can equate maybe his health a little bit to living in such a beautiful community.
Yeah.
And I don't want to forget the good stories, because there's so many bad ones out there right now that we need to look at the positives too. And then secondly, again, looking ahead at the future of the village and what we can do. And I think we got to get, again, really creative. A lot of the events are not going to take place this year that we know of, but maybe by the end of the year, we can get back on track. And I would love to see something pulled together involving the entire village to include not only the 4th Street, but the growers market. I'd love to see a concert at some point, maybe out at the village center property that would bring people back into the village. Also share, what we have available in terms of real estate. I just think there's a lot of things that we can start to work on for the future, whether it's at the end of the year, at the beginning of next year, to try and get people back to the village and let them know that we're open for business. So just want to challenge all of us to come up with some great ideas to do that.
Trustee Riccabini.
And thank you so much, Mayor and trustees. And I echo Sandra's remarks and Alan's as well. To tack on to Alan, I had a resident reach out to me about the trees on the west side of 4th Street. Seem a little bit starving, and so Ms. Simon and Keene were very quick to respond that we're going to go ahead and do something to try to save them. I know that it's part of the contractor's responsibility, but I certainly would hate to lose those trees in the meantime. They're wonderful trees, and so we might as well give them a little food. And
I agree.
Other than that, I think we've got a great village. We've got a great future. Let's just keep on moving on, and we'll manage through this next difficult time.
I do agree, and when you read my mayor's report in the next Village Vision magazine, you'll understand where I'm coming from. And so the bottom line is we're in this together. We have to work together, and we're going to make great progress in this village. It's going to take some time because obviously this is a situation that no one could have expected even a few months ago. And it's going to take a while for us to get out of this, but we will get out of it. I'm certain of that. We're a pretty resilient group of people. So thank you very much. So at 10:23, the meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.